Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. So the case that many people have been waiting for, of course, the Luigi Mangione case. And there you see him at a court hearing yesterday uh, in Manhattan. And it seems like the state case, of course, is going to go first. So there is so much evidence in this case, very strong evidence that the defense is in their legal battle right now is trying to suppress the evidence. And what does that mean? Well, that means try to prove that the police obtained the evidence illegally, and it's commonly referred to as the fruits of the poisonous tree doctrine. So, if the police obtained evidence illegally, then a judge must decide that and throw the evidence out so that the jury will never see this evidence. But is that really the case in this capital murder case against Luigi Mangione? Well, actually, it's only a capital murder as per the feds. The state in New York State, we do not have the death penalty. So it cannot be considered a capital murder case because there is no death penalty. Can Luigi Mangione get life without parole, as you see him on this thumbnail on the screen next to his attorney, Mark Agnifilo? And Luigi Mangione has some real heavyweights as his attorneys. By heavyweights, I mean that they are some of the top attorneys in New York City. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, when I was on the job over 14 years ago, was the second in charge at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. So she was on the other side of the fence. She was a prosecutor. And she prosecuted cases like this. So she really knows the inside of a courtroom. And of course, the man you see here, Mark Agnifilo, next to Luigi Mangione in court, he's her husband. And he's a heavyweight attorney also, right? So the Luigi Mangione case boils down to, how do his lawyers plan to suppress evidence, right? How are they going to do it? So the real fight over accused CEO killer Luigi Mangione isn't happening in front of a jury yet, not yet. It's happening right now, behind closed doors in a series of intense legal showdowns. We're now nearly a year past the shocking early morning assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, right? And the road to a trial is proving to be incredibly complicated. Well, made more complicated by defense attorneys with these arguments, right? And of course, if you were on trial, you would want a competent defense like Karen Friedman Agnifilo and her husband, Mark Agnifilo, and countless other attorneys they have in their stable of attorneys. In early December 2025, as we all know, Mangione appeared in court for a critical pretrial hearing that could decide the case before it begins. His lawyers have launched an aggressive, multi-pronged attack on the very foundation of the prosecution's case. Their argument that police made fundamental constitutional errors during his arrest. And because of that, the most damning evidence, the alleged murder weapon and his infamous diary, should be thrown out completely. And make no mistake, this is a high-stakes gamble. If the defense succeeds, the case against Luigi Mangione could be turned on its head. If they fail, prosecutors will walk into trial holding a mountain of evidence. Today, we're breaking down the defense's playbook, the prosecution's counterattack, and what it all means for one of the most polarizing cases in recent American history. Well, you know something, that this all depends. Will a judge really throw out the evidence against Luigi Mangione? And what it really amounts to is that stop in Altoona, Pennsylvania, when a manager of a McDonald's recognized Luigi Mangione from all of the media, all of the wanted posters, all of the television wanted little snippets of video, she recognized him as the man who was wanted for the shooting of Brian Thompson in New York City. So is the judge really going to throw out this evidence? Was the stop good? Was the initial police stop good? Stop, question, and frisk, which is a legal way to stop. And with that call from the McDonald's manager to 911, I believe that the Altoona police had at least reasonable suspicion upon showing up at the scene, and possibly even probable cause right at the scene. And to suggest that the police, once they identified him, or once they saw Luigi Mangione and they were satisfied that that was him, that they should get a search warrant to search his body, to search what he was carrying, when purportedly he was carrying a firearm. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Nowhere in the law of arrest would it say that the police must stop and get a search warrant to search the body and what the lungible area and what the alleged perpetrator was carrying, right? That's the law of arrest, right? And there's something also called search incidental to lawful arrest, which allows the police to search what the perpetrator was carrying. So to me, being pro-police and pro-cop and made thousands of these stops, I think this is a Hail Mary pass by the defense. But still, they're his defense attorneys. They're going to make this argument, absolutely make it. And is it their right and their duty? Of course, they want to give their client the best possible defense. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your service dog, hold on to your thoughts. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
This was Luigi Mangione and two of his attorneys in this little snippet here from NBC News yesterday in court.
Brian Thompson, he's in a major court hearing today. You can see him here sitting inside the courtroom.
His defense team asking a judge to rule out evidence found by police when Mangione was first arrested, including the notebook where prosecutors say he laid out his plan to allegedly murder the United Healthcare CEO.
Mangione's attorneys say officers searched his backpack without a warrant and did not immediately read him his Miranda rights. In court filings, prosecutors say police were justified in their search to make sure Mangione didn't have anything dangerous on him.
Now, the 27-year-old is facing 9 state charges, including murder in the second degree for allegedly gunning down Brian Thompson on a Manhattan street last year. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to those charges. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is following the latest from outside the New York City courthouse for us. Sam, first, what's happening as we speak? I mean, how are prosecutors expected to respond to Mangione's defense team?
Sure. Morgan, Vicky, good to be with you. We got off to a bit of a late start today. That's because there were some technical difficulties inside of court. Really, it was supposed to begin around 9 o'clock. It wasn't until about 10:45 that Luigi Mangione entered. And as you mentioned a second ago, he's wearing his civilian clothing, which the judge has given him permission to do. So you're seeing him in a dark sport coat right now in that checkered shirt. And he conferred with his attorneys there. Right about 10:45 is when witnesses started to be called to the stand. There have been 2 so far, guys. The first one is from the Department of Public Communications at the NYPD, really substantiating the building blocks for why there was a suspicion and the search itself to try to track down the suspect. In this case, there were images shown of Mangione from a hostel, allegedly Mangione from a hostel. Allegedly, him in the Starbucks prior to when the shooting took place. We then moved on to someone in security who had installed the system in the McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where he was ultimately arrested. And some of those images were played. So we're seeing snapshots quite literally of the chase to find the suspect in the murder of Brian Thompson. Presumably that's going to lead us back to what the actual interactions were later in that day. But that does get to the contentions here from the defense. These are motions that are about the illegal search of his backpack and specifically the items in there and evidence suppression. What they are arguing is that there was no warrant that was requested until about 7+ hours after this entire interaction in Altoona began, guys. And that was a time period in which they were looking at things according to the motion, like a 3D printed gun. The 3-page document that was described where he talks about his anger toward the healthcare industry, as well as a personal journal. Those are critical pieces of evidence potentially, and this is what the defense would like to suppress. So it's going to be very much at the center of what we're seeing here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, could really change the case, Sam. Obviously, a lot of attention on Luigi Mangione. We saw the GoFundMe account, folks coming out there in person to support him. What is it like at the courthouse?
It's a mixture, guys. From what we're told, we have our Stephanie Gosk and Adam Reese in court right now describing it for us, but you have mostly reporters, some Mangione supporters as well. One person I'm told wearing, a green outfit and hat, another one with a t-shirt that says justice is not a spectacle. You are looking at the intersection right now between people who are irate over the healthcare insurance industry, meeting justice for a father who was murdered in Midtown Manhattan. Obviously, it has drawn the national attention that we've seen from New York throughout the rest of the country, guys.
All right, Sam Brock for Sam. Thank you.
So, that's the part of this that I don't think fair-minded people will really argue about. Yes, we all would agree that healthcare and the way it's supplied, given out, insured in this country is a disaster. But that doesn't give you the right, or as a cause celeb, people supporting you because you gunned down a CEO on a Manhattan street because you disagreed with the way United Healthcare does business. I think that's, if we allow things like that, then we're a society that is lawless, And some of the issues here, you saw all the 7 charges against Luigi Mangione. They're really, to me, without merit. And when someone is stopped under reasonable suspicion, you have what we could call a stop, question, and frisk. And you're legally, without a search warrant, allowed to pat them down, search their lunch. And if you have more evidence than reasonable suspicion, which gives you the right to stop, question, and frisk, you can place someone under arrest once you have probable cause. And then with the law of arrest, we have something called search incidental to lawful arrest. And whatever you find on that person in their lungible area is all good. This judge is not going to throw this stuff out. Maybe will he throw a few breadcrumbs to the defense saying, oh, okay, once they had him in custody in Altoona, PA, then they could have gotten a search warrant to further search. I don't know if he's even going to do that, because in the search incidental to lawful arrest, all that stuff is fair game. And of course, the defense is going to argue this. And then another big issue, of course, is his interrogation, his interrogation. And what we like to say in law enforcement, or what is the law, is in custody means you're under arrest, plus interrogation equals Miranda. So what does that mean? Am I speaking in riddles? No. You're under arrest. That means you're in handcuffs. You are not free to go, right? And you're going to be interrogated. Before you're interrogated, you must be read your Miranda warnings. And if folks don't know what Miranda warning, you have the right to remain silent, all of those rights that are read to you. And before the police can interview you, interrogate you, other than pedigree information, which is name, date of birth, address, all of those things. Those do not, Miranda does not apply to that. They must read you Miranda, and you must waive your rights in order to be interviewed. And if you do not waive your rights and you are still interviewed, then the whole interview, anything the police may have garnered, evidence they may have gotten from the interview, will be thrown out. That's a good example of the fruits of the poisonous tree. Will this manifesto that was found in Luigi Mangione's backpack, outlining his intentions to shoot and kill Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, on a Manhattan street last December, might that be thrown out? There's a possibility it could be thrown out. But if the police in Pennsylvania did everything correctly, as the prosecution certainly will say they have, then all of this evidence will be kept in. Could a 20-minute conversation in a Pennsylvania McDonald's completely unravel the case against accused CEO killer Luigi Mangione? His lawyers say yes, of course they do. They argue police crossed a clear constitutional line by questioning him for nearly half an hour before ever reading his Miranda rights. So what is the question there? Well, for that half hour, was he under arrest? Was he in custody? Was he free to go? And if he was questioned at that point and he was not free to go and he was under arrest, then yeah, the judge may throw out the statements that he made during that half hour. But if he was not in handcuffs, he was not yet under arrest, that's the argument that the prosecution will make, then Miranda was not needed at that point. He was not under arrest. And they may argue that, but the defense will say, wait a minute. I thought you said when he stopped, you had reasonable suspicion and then you developed probable cause. So at that point, once you develop probable cause, wasn't he under arrest? That's what the defense is going to say. And then it will be left up to the judge to decide, well, who's telling the truth here, right? And in that same window of time, they also searched his backpack without a warrant. This I find a little bit ridiculous, because if the police in every stop, question, and frisk case, once they had probable cause, they've had to go stop on the street and go get a search warrant before they continued the search, and the defendant had a gun in his backpack, then you're going to have a lot of dead cops all across this country. So that's why that is not the law. A search that uncovered the gun and the diary that had become the pillars of the state's case. Now his legal team is fighting to have all of it, every statement, every object, every piece of evidence from that encounter declared inadmissible. It's a legal doctrine known, as we spoke about it before, the fruits of the poisonous tree. And it's the story of a legal war being waged in the shadows, a battle over constitutional rights that will define what a future jury is and is not allowed to see, right? So complex legal issues, but really not all that complex, because again, we have to think of this not in the scope of this, not in the scope of this big high-profile case, but in the scope of what the police do every day on the streets across this country, how they stop, question, and frisk people. And if we required our police to risk their lives and not go into the search of something that a defendant that purportedly committed a murder and has a firearm on him, if we required them to get a search warrant, isn't that a little bit ridiculous? And wouldn't the police be in serious danger if that were the case? I think the answer is yes. This is from CNN.
We're getting our first look today at Luigi Mangione inside court for a hearing in his New York State murder case. He's the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year. Attorneys for Mangione are trying to get key evidence like his diary entries tossed from his state murder case. CNN's Kara Scannell filed this report just before heading into court.
Luigi Mangione is back in court this morning as his lawyers try to get some key evidence in this case thrown out. The focus is when Mangione was approached by law enforcement at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's there that his lawyers argue his constitutional rights were violated. They say the Altoona police searched his backpack illegally because they didn't have a warrant. They also say they violated his rights by asking him questions without reading his Miranda rights, that is his right to remain silent. So what his lawyers want to keep out of this case and away from his jury are those contents that were found in the backpack: a gun, a silencer, and a notebook that had Mangione's handwriting samples in there. The prosecutors say that that was his manifesto and explained his motive for why he allegedly shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last December. Mangione wrote in that notebook, "Whack the CEO at annual parasitic bean counter convention." He also wrote, "It conveys a greedy bastard that had it coming." Mangione's lawyers also want to keep away from a jury a statement that he initially gave to law enforcement when he identified himself as Mark Rosario. That's the name of the person who rented a hostel room that authorities say the shooter stayed in just days before United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down. Prosecutors say that nothing improper happened. They are expected to call as many as 24 witnesses. Mangione will be in court. He's been given permission by the judge to wear a suit. He's asked to have one hand unshackled so he can take notes. The judge has not yet ruled on that, but this hearing could last several days. Wolf?
All right, Kara Scannell, I know you're going to be heading into that courtroom, and we'll be checking back with you often. Thank you very, very much. I want to bring in CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson right now. Joey, break down what the defense is arguing for us right now. Why are they trying to get this evidence thrown out?
So, Wolf, prior to any trial, you have what are called pretrial proceedings. At those pretrial proceedings, the prosecution has to establish that any evidence seized was seized properly, that there was probable cause underlying any seizure. Here, the issue in dispute is a backpack. Why is the defense trying to keep it out? Because it has damning evidence and information, as Kara Scannell just laid out. You have a backpack that has a gun, it has the silencer, it has the manifesto, quote unquote, which gives the real intention behind this killing of the healthcare executive. And so it's very damning if the jury would see it, in addition to his identification. They are alleging that as a defense that it was an improper search, that the bag was not in his possession technically. It was on a table that was nearby. It posed no danger to them.
You know, the law, that's a good issue that this attorney for CNN just raised. It was near him. And the law says within the lungible area. So I would certainly say that a backpack within, 12 inches, 2 feet, 3 feet from the defendant is lungible area. And that would fit this criteria as, where in the law of arrest, what the officers are, it's permissible for the officers to search and seize that evidence. It'd be ludicrous for making officers endanger their lives not being able to seize a backpack that was clearly held by the defendant or belongs to the defendant, that has a loaded firearm in it. Imagine the law said, oh, you need to get a search warrant. And how many dead cops would we have across this country if that were the law? And now a word from our sponsor. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is here. The only question is, are you ready to play? You must be 21 years or older and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online, real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbookfanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE New York, or text Hope New York in New York. So these issues are huge, and how a judge decides these issues have a tremendous impact on this case. I cannot see the judge throwing out the gun. There's no way on earth he's throwing out that gun. Will he throw out the manifesto that was inside that backpack? I think not. I don't think so, because it's in the same backpack the gun is in. So if he throws out the manifesto, which outlines Mangione's intention of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, tremendous amount of evidence. The defense, of course, wants that thrown out. Yes. Again, doubtful the judge will throw that out. How about the interview? There is where I believe the defense may have some hope that a judge may throw out some or part of the interview of Luigi Mangione. Homicide detectives know that you don't ask questions in regards to anything but pedigree information. You don't ask questions of an interrogation nature until the suspect has been read and waives Miranda. And if the suspect does not waive Miranda, then the interview is over. If he says, I want an attorney, the interview is over. So that's partially what they're going to ask. When was he under arrest? At what point was he under arrest? And if he was under arrest, why were you asking him questions of an interrogation nature? This is Ashley Banfield from News Nation yesterday.
Answer, of course, is when they're ruled inadmissible at trial, off limits as prosecution evidence. If a jury doesn't see them, they might as well not exist, right? That is the exact reason that Luigi Mangione will be spending much of this week in a New York City courtroom, almost exactly 1 year after he allegedly gunned down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a Manhattan sidewalk. The actual anniversary is this Thursday, and I'm going to get to just how well his arguments went down in court today, but first things first. Luigi walked into the courtroom today in shackles, but the judge let him swap out his jailhouse jumpsuit for some pretty nice threads. Here's the actual wardrobe note that spells out exactly what he's allowed to wear all this week during his case. 2 suits, 2 shirts, 3 sweaters, 3 pairs of pants, 5 pairs of socks, and 1 pair of shoes. No laces. Can't have the laces. Still an inmate, fella, no matter what you wear in court. And for the hearing itself, he is allowed to lose the hardware, meaning he can sit in court unshackled. I should also note that this is state court, where Luigi faces 9 charges, including murder. But he's also facing that federal charge, a murder charge, right, for the very same crime. And the feds are seeking death in that case. The state trial will likely come first, and Luigi's backpack, which was brimming with smoking guns, almost literally, will either have a starring role in the case or it won't come up at all. And that, my friends, is Luigi is pondering in his cell tonight. He certainly hopes that no one is ever going to hear a mention of it, aside from you and I talking about it right now. But I don't know, you might not be on the jury, so it won't matter for you. But the 12 people who will be impaneled in his case, 24 if you think of 2 cases, it's going to matter to them. Luigi had his backpack with him at this here McDonald's restaurant when he was spotted and arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That was 5 days after the shooting. The local cops searched his backpack right there and then in that restaurant. And they must have thought they hit the jackpot, because they found, among other things, a 3D printed handgun that prosecutors say matches the weapon, the murder weapon. They also found a notebook filled with handwritten complaints about for-profit healthcare, including a plan to, quote, whack a health insurance executive at an annual conference.
So all of those things in that stop in Altoona, Pennsylvania, perfectly legit, search incidental to lawful arrest. And his high-priced defense attorneys Karen Friedman Agnifilo, Mark Agnifilo, and all their attorneys. They can argue till the cows come home. But I believe, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong before, I believe that the judge is going to allow all of those things in as evidence. So, folks, we're going to keep covering this case as new information comes out every day. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.